Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. I know, it's been a little while. You're probably wondering what the hell's going on with Joe. The man hasn't uploaded a video for a little while. And this is true, I haven't uploaded a video for a while. I've been a little busy. Unfortunately, life's been a little hectic this year for me, so I haven't been able to upload as much, but here we are. I really wanted to get this one out here, because I, very much like I'm sure the rest of you, was super excited to get my hands on Mario Wonder, the first legit new 2D Mario game since New Super Mario Bros. On the Wii U. Of course, that game would also be ported to the Switch in 2019, but a port is a port, and a new game is a new game, and Wonder is brand new, from top to bottom. And obviously from the title of this video, you can already tell that my opinion of Wonder is not going to be super stellar. I wasn't overly impressed with it. Now, to be fair, I'll be upfront, I don't think it's a bad game. I wouldn't go as far as to steer someone away from purchasing it and saying oh, it's terrible, it's the worst Mario game they've ever made. I'm not going that far. It's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but when you compare it to past 2D Mario games in the franchise, I just think that it comes up short in a lot of ways, but we'll get to that. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me start off with one thing that I think Wonder does extremely well, and that's the visuals. The game looks beautiful. Everything from the overall design of the world to the aesthetics of the characters is sensational. It's pretty apparent that the art team reached back into the older eras of Mario for inspiration. And I truly think that they nailed this perfectly. And it's definitely a surprising route for them to take because I feel like Nintendo is really safe when it comes to Mario. They don't like to go crazy and do anything that's outside of the norm. So it's nice to see them take a different approach. And in most cases, it's extremely subtle. It's not anything that's just standing out overtly and these characters look radically different from the way they normally do. But if you're familiar with the old renders and the old artwork for these characters, you can really see the similarities, especially with a character like Yoshi. Yoshi is probably the most different on the cast because it's embraced more of his retro design from the 90s, where his proportions are more dinosaur-like than they are upright and standing straight up in his more modern depictions. And this just only helps cement further the idea that this game is trying to sort of reach back for that nostalgic look to an older era of Mario games. And for someone like me, who grew up in the 90s and played all of the older games, it kind of gives me that literal sense of nostalgia. It's weird to have nostalgia, or a sense of it, from a brand new game. It's a pretty wild feeling. Even the world map takes a lot of visual cues from the older Mario games. Bowser's location in the Wonder map is in a very similar spot to where his Warp Zone location was at in Super Mario World's overworld. And speaking even more so of the map, I love how it has this cool isometric view to it. Reminds me a lot of Super Mario RPG. And even the way the characters move on the map with these jerky little movements as you walk around, it almost seems like the sprites in Super Mario RPG from back in the day. So again, this is something that they absolutely hit a home run right out of the ballpark. And with that out of the way, let's get into the rest of the game, where I'm starting to have some problems. First, let's talk about the characters. The roster is fine. There's a lot of good here. In fact, there's a lot of great here. Obviously, we have our core characters, Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. Toad coming in yellow and blue. Toadette is here, and this time, she didn't bring her. The aforementioned Yoshi is here, and for the first time in a 2D Mario game, he's not a glorified power-up. He's his own playable character. And here's a little fun fact for you. The 4 playable colors of Yoshi, green, red, blue, and yellow, are also the 4 colors of Yoshis that debuted in Super Mario World. The more you know. Then there's Nabbit, who I honestly could care less about. And then there's the big one, Princess Daisy, who, holy shit, after literally 30 years, is appearing in a mainline Mario platforming game as a playable character. Her only appearance in a Mario platforming game being Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. And 1 second, before you go down in the comments and start click-clacking away on the keyboard and tell me, "But Joe, she's in Super Mario Run!" Super Mario Run does not count. It is a mobile game, and it is bullshit. But yeah, these are all fine choices. Some may even say, wonderful, but they had to go and mess it up. How did they do that? Well, one, they had to tie easy mode to particular characters. You make Yoshi playable for the first time in a 2D Mario game as a solo character. You give Yoshi his abilities that he's had since forever. His flutter jump, his ability to eat enemies. Hell, he can even carry people around in multiplayer. So he already has a lot going for him. Then they decide to take the most dynamic and unique character in the game on the roster and make him invincible to damage, thus making him easy mode, which means if you want to play a character who, in my opinion, is one of the most fun characters in the entire game to play, you're going to be playing the game on easy mode. And this, in my opinion, is just stupid. I don't understand why they tie an easy mode to a character when you could easily just make it a toggleable mode that you could just go in, toggle it on or off, and make it so that way any character doesn't have to take damage for that particular player and do it that way. Because now, if you're a fan of Yoshi and you play the game, you're going to be playing it and not taking any damage and feeling like the game is far too easy. And yeah, I get it. Yoshi can't use any of the power-ups. And that's fine. I mean, that seems like a fair trade given the fact that he has a flutter jump and he can eat enemies. Sure, make it so that way he can't use power-ups. That's the trade-off. That's the weakness of playing as him, and that's fine. That, if anything, gives his character at least a little bit of challenge, considering the fact that, again, he takes no damage. And then you have Nabbit, who also doesn't take damage at all. Now, he doesn't have any powers. That's pretty much all he does, is he's just invincible to damage. But again, in my opinion, that makes Nabbit even less of an interesting character to play, because not only does he not have any special abilities at all, the only thing he does is just tank hits. As I played through the game, I played each and every stage as one of the regular characters, and then I played each and every stage as Yoshi, because Yoshi's my favorite, and I really wanted to try him out. And I personally found him to be the most fun character to play, just because of his abilities in tandem with using the badges and things in stages made him enjoyable. Which, again, my other issue with the roster is that all the other characters are just basically just playable skins. It would have been cool if they gave Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad their classic abilities from Mario 2 and Super Mario 3D World. It definitely would have made this large character roster feel more justified than just having characters in it just to have them. And it would have been really cool to see how these characters' innate abilities could work with the badge system, and would have made it so that way every character has advantages and disadvantages going through stages. And I'm sure it wouldn't have been difficult for them to cook up stuff for Daisy and for Toadette to have ability-wise, and it would have been really cool and dynamic. Admittedly, the fact that the characters don't have abilities is a little bit more of a nitpick than it is a major complaint, but you gotta see where I'm coming from here. They had an opportunity to make the roster a little bit more dynamic, and they didn't take it. And then on top of that, they lock a mode of play to particular characters, so that way fans of those characters feel less inclined to play them if they don't want to play the game on an easier difficulty. It's just, it's a dumb idea, in my opinion. Especially when you consider the fact, and this is one of my biggest complaints with Wonder, is that it's probably like the easiest 2D Mario game that's ever existed. And that's not even an exaggeration. I'm being completely serious. The challenge in this game is incredibly lacking. And I'm not trying to say that the core platforming is bad, because it's not. It's a Mario game, and at the end of the day, Nintendo can make Mario games with their eyes closed. It's still got that fun factor. It's still an enjoyable game to play. However, it's just not very hard. And Mario certainly isn't a series that is afraid to get challenging, especially in the late stages. But Wonder stayed consistently easy all the way through. From the opening stages all the way to Bowser, the game is just far too easy. Now, yes, there are the special stages, that you can unlock as you go through the game. It's like, the Star Road, basically, like Super Mario World. And those stages are challenging. However, I found that even those didn't come close to even normal stages in Super Mario World and original Mario Bros. And Mario 3. And I find it really funny that the challenge in this game feels so dumbed down, especially because Nintendo went through all the trouble of making it, more accessible for people through the badge system, through the shops that you can go in and buy extra lives. You don't even have to earn your lives. You can just straight up buy them with coins. Having characters who are literally easy mode in the game. There are so many avenues that it seems like if they had made this game far more challenging and upped the challenge on this, there would be plenty there to help subsidize that for players who may not be as adept at Mario games. But instead, they made the game easier, and then on top of that, they gave you even more avenues to make the game even easier. Now, I've definitely seen people debate online about the difficulty of this game, and one of the arguments that I see people use against people criticizing the difficulty of the game is that this game was made for children, and thus it's easy. Like, what do you expect out of a kid's game? Well, here's a newsflash. Every Mario game is a children's game. Every Mario game has been made with children in mind. From the original NES game all the way up to today, these games were made for kids. And if you go back and play any of the previous 2D Mario games, you will find that all of them are far more challenging than this one. So it's not really a good excuse. And the difficulty really is the bummer here, because Mario Wonder does a lot right with the decisions that they've made. Like getting rid of the timers, so that way, it's more about exploring stages and looking for secrets than it is racing to the end. This is something that many other Nintendo platformers have embraced over the years. Donkey Kong Country got rid of the timer way back on the SNES. Wario Land got rid of the timer. Yoshi's Island got rid of it. And these were games that focused on exploration, looking for secrets, looking for new things in stages, rather than just racing from the beginning to the end. And this is a choice that I love. I love exploring in my platforming games. I like looking for secrets. I like that challenge. And so Mario Wonder going in that direction is definitely a good idea. However, while they've embraced that, the stages don't necessarily feel like they were made with that in mind. A lot of Wonder stages feel very similar to older Mario games in terms of their overall design concept. There doesn't feel like there's a lot of areas to really go and explore and look for these secrets. Whereas if you play a game like Wario Land, or the Donkey Kong Country games, or Yoshi's Island, stages are kind of, a little bit more expansive. They're all over the place. They're sort of like a puzzle almost that you have to figure out to find all the secrets. Whereas Wonder is it just feels similar to any other Mario stage I've played in the past. Don't get me wrong, there are a few stages that break the mold, but a vast majority of them are very run-of-the-mill. My other complaint with the stages is that a lot of them felt a little predictable after a while because they're pretty much the same sequence in every single one. The Wonder Flowers, which are your prime mechanic of this game, it's literally where the game gets its name from. A Wonder Flower appears at literally the midpoint of almost every single level. You know that you're going to start the stage, you're going to go through a bit, you're going to hit a Wonder Flower, that's the middle, you're going to do the Wonder thing, you're going to get to the end of that, and boom, you're going to finish the stage. It's literally like this in almost every single level, aside from the ones that are, like the challenge stages where you get the badges and stuff. It's pretty much the same thing every single time. And while, yes, the Wonder Flower abilities made it a little bit more unpredictable because you didn't know what they were going to do, the fact is that you knew that once you hit a certain point, you were going to find a Wonder Flower. You were going to do the challenge of the Wonder Flower, and then you would be right around the mid to halfway point of beating the stage, and then you were done. Or you would just Wonder Flower right to the end. Like I said, it got predictable. And now that moves us on to the Wonder mechanics. Now, the Wonder mechanics are fun. They are enjoyable. However, very much like most of Wonder, I felt like most of them were very easy. I didn't really have a hard time, or have that much of a challenge in most of them. Quite a few of them were more visual than they were actually anything else. Like the singing piranha plants, for example. It's a spectacle. Like, you're like, wow, this is crazy. But it didn't really offer that much of a challenge or anything. It was just, I guess, a fun thing to see or an experience. And that's how I felt about a lot of the Wonder Flower abilities. Like, they all just seem like they're more spectacle. And that isn't to say that it's necessarily an awful thing. It's just not as exciting as I thought it would be, I guess you could say. The other thing is, a lot of the Wonder abilities are, to be honest, taken from games that if you've played any other Nintendo platformers within the past, 30 years, you've more than likely experienced a good amount of what the Wonder abilities offer. Things like transformations, the silhouette stages, the changes in gravity, the changes in game speed. These are all things that are in, again, other platformers. And I hate to say it, but Donkey Kong Country, Wario Land, and Yoshi's Island comes up a lot. Because these are three games that I feel Wonder borrowed a lot of things from, especially for its Wonder abilities. And there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. I'm not saying that that is an issue. especially because a lot of these platforming games are phenomenal. They're great games. So if you're going to borrow stuff from them, you know, do it, absolutely. But I guess I just felt a little underwhelmed from the wonder sections of the games because it's stuff that I've seen before, I guess. I don't know. Again, not bad, just underwhelming. Another criticism that I have of the game that it's more of a nitpick than it is a major issue is the music. The music in Wonder is boring. It's not very good. There's not a lot of good tracks unless they're remixes of an old track or it's literally them putting an old track into the game. Now, there is some really good, surprising songs that appear in Wonder from other Mario games, including from 3D Mario games, which is really cool. But generally, I found the soundtrack to be extremely forgettable. The best song, in my opinion, was probably towards the end in the Bowser world. I feel like the theme in there was pretty cool, but that's about it. And the other thing that was really disappointing too with Wonder is like there were little tiny musical Easter eggs of past songs in the new music, and it would just kind of disappoint me when it wouldn't be like a remix of that song. The Bowser theme in this game is probably the best example because you can hear little tiny hints of the Bowser 64 theme song for Mario 64. You can hear the same little beat to start off, and I thought they were going to remix that theme, and I was getting super excited, and then it just goes past that, and it becomes forgettable, which was just really disappointing. But yeah, the music was lame, not that good. But this next bit, this one is a big one. Here is a huge criticism of this game. Right up there alongside game being too easy, okay? The bosses. Holy shit, this is probably one of the worst lineups of bosses in any 2D Mario game that I have ever played in my life. First of all, the Bowser Jr. fight was fun the whole one time that you do it. You repeat Bowser Jr. 4 times. You fight the guy 4 times. And the fights aren't even really all that different. Okay, it's not anything you haven't seen. This is the thing. You know, you have these wonder abilities. It's supposed to make the game wild, wacky, and crazy. And the most they could think of for Bowser Jr. is to make the floor rise up and down or have random water in the stage, which is stuff that has happened in other games. Bowser and Bowser Jr. must be the most unimaginative motherfuckers on the face of the earth because they have these wonder powers at their disposal, and that's what they're doing. I'm not even going to count King Boo or Shadow Mario or any of that shit because they're not even really bosses. They're just wonder abilities that show up in the stage, and really, most of it's so easy, it's just you running away from them. They barely even feel like a boss, so I'm not including them. They're not bosses to me. And don't worry, it gets worse. Because you have the airships. The airships in the game have literally the same boss every single time. It's a conveyor belt with a Bowser head that has some boxes coming out. You just jump over it. It literally takes you 5 seconds to jump over to the other side and hit the button and blow it up. It's kind of supposed to be like, I guess, an homage back to the old Bowser fights in the NES Mario games where you jump over his head and hit the axe and collapse the bridge. But those were actually challenging. This is not. There's nothing difficult about these. They're lazy and they're lame. They're not exciting. They're not interesting. Okay? You could have had the Koopalings. You could have had Boom Boom. They have a million options at their disposal, and yet they choose to use absolutely none of those and just make this bullshit. That is one of the laziest things I've ever seen, almost to the point of unbelievability. Like, I cannot believe that they did that and thought that that was passable as a boss in the airships. It's just insane. And now finally, spoiler alert here, we're going to be talking about the final boss, and this is by far one of the worst things Nintendo could have done. Worse because already the boss options are just bottom of the barrel. They're not good. Worse in the fact that the premise of this game is with these wonder flowers, and things are supposed to get absolutely wild and crazy. Bowser has transformed himself into a castle. The man literally changed himself into a fucking building. And the most this dude's mind could cook up was to basically be cardinal sins in Nintendo's boss catalog. Being a head and hands boss. The dude is literally Tiki Tom. He's literally Andross. He's literally every other boss you've ever fought in most other Nintendo games that utilizes the floating head and the hands. This is how you end your game. This is your final boss. What a way to end the game on a literal fucking whimper. Not only that, but the whole theme and aesthetic just doesn't make any sense. You get to the very end and all of a sudden Bowser's like fucking DJ Octavio from Splatoon. Like, the guy's got bass and speakers all over the place and he's throwing a goddamn rave. It just doesn't make any sense. It was just weird. It just came out of nowhere to me. I mean, I get it. They had like some musical stuff in the game with the piranha plants and King Boo, but I don't know. It didn't really make much sense to me. And the fact that I'm literally fighting a floating hands and head boss just really killed it. It's just, what an awful idea. But yeah, I mean, that about wraps it up, I think. The things that I really didn't care for. There's some stuff I didn't really mention, like the power-ups, but that's just because they're kind of whatever to me. I found the elephant power-up to be more weird than anything. I don't think it served much of a purpose. I thought it was kind of generic. The drill and the bubble power-up were actually pretty cool. The bubble would probably ended up being my favorite. I thought that one was going to be my least favorite, but I found it to be the most useful and the most interesting. So yeah, the power-ups are okay. Whatever. I honestly just think the elephant was put in there just to be weird and people to be like, whoa, like it's like a wow factor thing. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of Mario Wonder. I feel like a lot of it was aesthetic. They did a lot of stuff to make you go, wow, from the fact that it's happening and not from a challenge standpoint. Like, wow, Mario turns into an elephant. Wow, all these piranha plants are singing and dancing around. Wow, King Boo's following me and he's doing an opera. It's like a all style and no substance kind of situation, if you know what I'm saying. It's all very fun to look at, but that's literally it. It's just fun to look at. It didn't serve much of a challenge. It didn't really change anything in terms of, you know, how people are going to be playing Mario games. It's just kind of whatever. And I mean, that's fine. You know, it's a fun game. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I think Mario Wonder is fun. I think it's worth your time. However, I don't think it's anywhere near as good as past Mario games. I still think Super Mario World is the king of 2D Mario games. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And as much as I loved looking at Wonder, I didn't love playing it as much. Like I said, not bad, but very underwhelming. It was disappointing. But what did you guys think of Wonder? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you feel so strongly about my opinion being wrong and stupid that you want to give me a 5-paragraph response down below? Feel free to do it. Go ahead. I read all the comments of my videos. I try to reply to as many as possible, so go ahead, pop that thing right down there, and we can start a discussion about this. I want to see what a lot of other people's genuine opinions are of this game, especially since it's been out for a little bit now. You know, we've had it for a little while, so I want to see where people's heads are at now that a lot of the hype has kind of died down for it. So yeah, pop that bad boy right down there. If this is your first time watching any of my videos, welcome. I'm impressed that you've made it this far. This is a very long video. And if you want to subscribe, feel free. Obviously, you know, yada, 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 like the video because it really helps me out, blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets the spiel. We all know. I have a Discord chat. If you want to join it, I'll have a link down in the description below. There's a ton of people in there. Nobody talks. It's dead-ass quiet, but, you know, it's fun when people actually do decide to have conversations. So feel free to jump on in. Finally, for all you longtime subs out there, you know who you are. First of all, let me just say, I'm sorry. Took a bit of a hiatus. You know, I'm not going to get into it here. There's a million reasons as to why. You know, life just generally gets in the way, you know, stuff like that. But here I am. I finally did it. I uploaded my video. I've been waiting a while. But everybody who's been longtime subs of this channel, you know, I love it. I appreciate it so much. You guys mean so much to me, honestly. It really does mean a lot when I look and see that my sub count isn't dropping too much, even though I haven't uploaded a video in a while. And it really makes me feel like people appreciate the content that I do. I mean, YouTube is a hobby for me. I do it in my free time. So the fact that people care enough is just, it's nuts. I don't even really know how to put it into words. It's really cool. It's a good feeling. And, you know, I'm sorry that it took me a while to upload this, but like I said, I'll always be uploading content, no matter how long it takes. I'll always do something eventually when I can. I'm usually working on a video when I have the free time. It just takes me a little bit of a while. But who knows what'll happen in the future. You know, maybe I'll make more time for YouTube or something. I don't know. We'll see. But thanks again. You know I appreciate you. You know I love you. I've gone on way too long here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.